is Ed from Exotic Planks. Today's video is about squaring the pens on the lathe. I have for a long time not been a fan of pen mills, and so this is my alternative to a pen mill. It's a very simple mechanism. It really only has two parts to it. First is the spinning sandpaper, and second is the punch that's inside that blank, and that punch is being held in place by a Jacobs chuck that's in the tailstock. So let's get going on making the sandpaper section of it. For this, I start with a very simple 5-inch square of 3/4 inch plywood cut on my saw. You could round this out with a bandsaw if you have one, but we didn't do it that way. I also have a nut that's 1 inch by 8 teeth per inch. That's the threading that's on the headstock of my lathe. First step is to glue the nut to the center of the board. Doesn't have to be perfect, and I use thick CA glue. I'm sure a lot of other things would work, but I use thick CA and I've found that it's worked pretty well. Let it sit for 24 hours, however, so that it has set thoroughly before you do the next step. It is now the next day, and so I take that assembly and mount it onto my headstock. The nut is not quite as thick as the headstock is, so you want to be careful how you put that on. You don't want to tighten it down real tight. And then what I'm trying to do here is to create a circle where the piece should be cut. Now, I do that on the lathe, and it's a good idea to do it to about maybe a 1/4 of an inch deep, and then take it to a bandsaw or some other type of a saw that will make the cut, and that will give you a spot where you know that your cut is going to be a circle. But doing it completely on the lathe, at the end there is a time when it all separates, and it is not very safe. So it's a much better idea to just mark it and get a good solid marking, and then cut it. Cut it on some kind of a saw. Next, we need a piece of Velcro, which is also called hook and loop. That I usually get at the sewing store, and this is a picture of the sewing hook and loop material. You can get it in squares that way, and it also is pressure sensitive back. Good idea to test it. Take your hook and loop and make sure that it matches the back of your sandpaper so that you've got hooks on one and loops on the other, and then take the protective back off of the hook and loop material and put it onto the plywood that you've created. It's fairly simple. All you have to do is get it on there good and tight, and then pretty much it is complete. With this design, you can take the sandpaper and mount it off center, left, right, it doesn't matter. As you can see, there's several marks on this one where I've used it, but it doesn't make any difference where you put it, so you can get the maximum life out of your sandpaper using all the different sides, different parts of it. So now that it's made, what's the big advantage? In my mind, when you take a blank and use a pen mill on it, you could very easily tear it apart. The pen mills are not always sharp, and they have several different blades sticking out. If one blade is longer than the other, it's a distinct possibility that it's going to catch and it's going to ruin a blank, especially the blanks that are resin blanks, poured resins, or different kinds of, like the one I'm showing here where it's a mosaic. Those are not meant to be beat up. They're meant to be used as pen blanks. So this is much kinder to the blank, if you want to put it that way. You're not as likely to ruin a blank. In fact, this method, I have never ruined one. It's very simple, and it takes a little bit more time because you do have to do this after you've done some turning, but I think it's worth it. So thanks for watching. This is Ed from Exotic Planks. Good turning to you. Bye now.